the Student of the Game podcast, where we break down the life, strategy, and advice of successful individuals who are students of their own game and masters of their own craft. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to the episode.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. My name is Tim Stone. I'm here with my co-host Nick Galbreath, and today we have a special guest, Matt Colangelo, aka the Wealthy Marketer, tuning in from Vancouver, British Columbia in Canada. So thanks for being here, Matt.
Yeah, happy to be here, happy to represent Canada, and happy to share more with you guys on the movement behind the name known as the Wealthy Marketer.
Awesome. I believe you are our very first international guest. So congratulations.
Woo! That is an honor. Yeah.
And I'll tell everyone a little bit about how we met. We met in Nashville a couple months ago at a Coach Bird event, which was a great event. It was an awesome time. And my first time really spending any time in Nashville.
Nice.
But it was awesome. We had a great chat. We went out for some beers. You snuck me into a couple bars on Broadway because I was not 21 yet. And then, so that's how we met. We've been in contact since. And now let's just dive into everything that happened before that. Tell us about your life.
Okay, yeah, definitely. So again, I am Canadian, born and raised. I was born and raised in and around the Toronto area, which is pretty much the biggest market in Canada and the fifth biggest market in North America. You know, it's kind of like the size of you could compare it to Chicago kind of thing. Wow. To some degree, right? Though it is Canada, it's not America, right? There's two, that's a big difference.
Yeah.
So born and raised in Toronto, and then in and around my 37th birthday, I decided that I had enough of Toronto and I had enough of the suburban lifestyle. So I convinced my wife to sell the house, sell all the stuff, and relocate the family from, the East Coast of Canada and Toronto all the way to the West Coast of Canada, where we ended up in Vancouver, BC. So that's kind of like a unique kind of thing for Canadians, believe it or not. Not many people make those kind of moves, especially families. In America, like a lot of you guys, you pick up and you go here, you go there. It's much more common, right? You guys also have a lot more options. Yeah. But for someone like us and, Canadians in general, it's kind of a rare thing. It's a rare, big, bold move. Yeah. And then when I moved out west, I started to develop this kind of concept behind the Wealthy Marketer. And it was ultimately an accumulation of a 25-year journey that I've had being a professional marketer, right? I went to school for marketing. I went to college for marketing. I went to university for marketing. I established my career in marketing. I provided for my family through marketing. I made investments happen through marketing. I started my own businesses with marketing as the foundation, and lived the digital marketer lifestyle, and ultimately gained freedom over my time and place. And going through this whole kind of process over the course of 25 years, I eventually came up with the name the Wealthy Marketer. And then behind the Wealthy Marketer, there's kind of this process that I've been developing where I ultimately want to teach other people who are doing marketing for a living how to become a wealthy marketer themselves. Because I've kind of gone through the process, trial and error, right? Doing all these things, running businesses, taking on jobs, making moves, right? Yeah. And now I feel like I can teach more people how to become wealthy marketers in the process.
That's great.
This needs to be implemented in the school systems.
You
got to take Matt's course to pass college.
I'm just thinking of all those kids that go to school.
Yeah.
They go to post-secondary school, especially for marketing. And then they come out and they just end up finding themselves in all these kind of mistakes, right? If they follow my process, they'll end up being a lot stronger as a person, and also a lot stronger financially, which is very important, right? So hopefully one day the Wealthy Marketer message and the Wealthy Marketer process will be available to college and university students all across America, Canada, and the world. That's the goal.
Yeah.
And we're excited to be a part of that vision.
Yeah, getting it out there across
Get
some
it out
college
there.
students.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure.
when you hear a lot about just marketing as a profession, first thing that comes to mind is just go to school, get a marketing degree, and get a marketing job. Maybe you do stuff on the internet, you create ads or whatever.
Yeah.
But I've never heard of building wealth through marketing or building wealth through a career in marketing. So
Right.
I'm really excited to dive into that. But could we take it back way before the wealthy marketer and hear a little bit about your life? What was your upbringing like? What was it like growing up in Toronto?
Yeah.
As a kid, how was your family?
Yeah, definitely. So I grew up in like an area that had a lot of like technology companies.
Mhm.
They established their Canadian headquarters in a town called Markham, Ontario, Canada, which is just kind of like north of Toronto, suburban sprawl. But like IBM had their Canadian headquarters there, right? Intel had a Canadian headquarters there. Apple had an office. Just all kinds of any technology company that you can think of, any American technology company that you can think of, the majority of them established their Canadian headquarters in the town that I grew up in, right? So at the same time, I grew up in a household that was more blue collar, right? Like my dad drove a bus for like the major, transport, the major public transport system, right? So I grew up in this blue collar household, right? But I was also surrounded by like a lot of kids whose parents were working for technology companies. Even my cousins, my aunts, my uncles, they're all tied into these technology companies, right? So I got exposure to a lot of wealthy households, wealthy ways of living, people with big stock portfolios. I had friends that had trust funds. Like all this stuff was like right there in front of me, right? But at the same time, I was observing it as like an outsider looking in because, I come home and like I'm in a blue collar home. It was a nice home in a nice neighborhood, right? But like the way of thinking and what I could be exposed to, right? Due to kind of like the limitations of, taking on a blue collar role. Didn't necessarily allow me to have all the benefits that my friends had, right? Mm-hmm. But I still got exposure to this, the wealth principles, right? And it kind of like stuck with me, but at the same time, like I still kind of like followed it like a middle class path, right? And I had to kind of like fight through and like try to like move myself away from the middle class thinking, right? And try to align more with the wealthy thinking that like a lot of other people around me had direct exposure to, right? Mm-hmm. So it was kind of like an interesting upbringing in that light, right? And it just made me kind of like always hungry for building wealth for myself, right? But then at the same time, like I paid my way through school. I paid my way through school. I grinded it out. I did 2 marketing programs. And, when it was all said and done, like I came out of school and like I had debt, I was trying to like find like a decent job. I was in like a serious relationship. There was a lot like kind of like happening. Right. And then I was always worried about paying off the debt and not investing. I got to pay off the debt first and then I'm going to start to invest. Right. So, I fell into kind of like traps like that. And, one thing led to another. And shortly after I finished school, I got married. I got married at a young age, similar to maybe how Tim might be.
Potentially.
And, still kind of like worrying about this debt, but I wanted to get into real estate. So then, I got into real estate. I became a homeowner, right? But then I went years without kind of investing in stocks. And at that time, crypto kind of didn't exist, right? And I feel like, there was this missed opportunity, right? I shouldn't have been so focused on the real estate. I should have like got the stock market working first, maybe someone could have told me, showed me the way, right? And then got into real estate thereafter. And then when crypto came along, 10 years ago, get into that too, right? So yeah, I guess like to sum things up, like my journey coming up, I was exposed to a lot of like really wealthy people, right? I came from a middle class household in a nice home, nice neighborhood, but I really had to like kind of like fight my way through to make everything happen. I didn't have much help, right? I paid
You
for
had
my
exposure, but it
real
wasn't part of
estate.
your upbringing.
Pardon?
You had exposure, but it was not part of your upbringing.
It wasn't a part of my upbringing. It's like a tease almost,
Yeah.
It was right there in front of me, but like I didn't have like direct access to it. Yeah. So then I kind of like, once I kind of like got married and got established with my career, let's just see here. What happened, guys? What happened?
And I remember listening to your first episode, you talked about when you came out of college, it was kind of the dot-com boom.
Yeah.
Right. And you didn't know, the internet was kind of broken. And so digital marketing was kind of out of the picture, and you got a position at a print shop.
That's
Where
correct.
you were kind of handling all the operations.
Yeah.
And maybe we can just kind of start there and kind of go from there of your career and how it flourished into the wealthy marketer today.
Yeah. That's a good point. And I realize I'm kind of going off in a tangent. I'm not telling the story as I normally do.
We love the tangents.
I'm glad you brought
we
this
like
up.
to break it down and just go how it naturally goes.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's just put it this way, right? Let's go back to high school. When I was in high school, right? I'm trying to fit in with the wealthy kids, but I'm in a blue collar household, right? So how did I fit in with the wealthy kids? Through kind of like to some degree, guys, through drugs and alcohol. That was the way that I could relate, right? So I hung out with the wealthy kids, and like the best way I could relate to them was through drugs and alcohol. So I had challenges in high school with that, right? Nothing too crazy, right? But it was a factor. And I also had challenges with a lot of the courses that I was taking. I'd get a bad math mark, my parents would get mad at me. I'd suck in science, my parents would get mad at me. But then there was this one course that I took, marketing, and I guess because it was like a combination of business and art, and like I'm a creative person, and I believe to some degree I have strong business acumen. It was like a course that like stuck out for me, and I really enjoyed it. And that's ultimately what inspired me to like take marketing in college, right? So when I applied for college, it was 1999, okay? And when I got into college, it was kind of like 1999 transitioning into 2000, okay? And in and around this time, what was happening was there was this big dot-com boom. For example, Elon Musk in 1999, he already had his McLaren, right? He got the McLaren through the dot-com boom, right? And then next thing you know, there was a bust, right? So I'm going into college at this time when the dot-com boom busted and the internet was broken, right? So I did 3 years of college from 2000 through to 2003, and the internet was kind of like came and went. Like a lot of people to some degree wrote it off. There was still people out there trying to make it work, right? And in some capacity, I'm sure Amazon was still selling books at that time, right? But the opportunity had kind of like come and gone. So being in college in and around this time, we're trying to like navigate between like the old world and like the broken internet, right? And still trying to piece it together. So when I got out of college, there wasn't very many kind of like internet opportunities. The internet was kind of like, to some degree, a little bit like scaled back and at a standstill. It wasn't booming, right? There was no real proven business model for it yet, right? So that's what led me into print, okay? So I ended up getting a job with a print marketing firm, and what they specialized in was pizza flyers for pizzerias, largely all across America. So we were in Canada, and we were selling this kind of like high-end pizza flyer solution to, big chain pizzerias like Domino's, 10 to 100 location pizzerias, regional maybe, and then mom and pop pizzerias all across America. And if you think about that, that's kind of like an interesting business model, right? Because obviously the pizza business is a big business, right? There's probably like still pizzerias at every street corner where you guys are.
Totally.
Yeah.
Big time.
But it was kind of cool because it kind of like gave me my first real exposure to capitalism, right? I got a chance as a Canadian to experience capitalism through the pizza business, through the American pizza business, right? And I just saw how powerful the, economic system is, right? Because the pizzerias all across America were coming to our Canadian company and buying pizza flyers from us. But at the same time, we had pizzerias across Canada who wanted nothing to do with our pizza flyers, right? And a lot of it just has to do with the mentality, right? The American mentality and capitalism as a whole, right? So I just gained like this big appreciation for America and the way it did business and how powerful it could be as an economy, right? So then while I was working with that pizzeria, when I was working with the print marketing company, I worked with them for about 1.5 years. And then I kind of like had this epiphany. I'm like, you know what? I don't know fully about this print thing like forever. Like, I think maybe there is something that's going to happen with the internet. And like, I'm not like 100% fully comfortable with the amount of education that I had. So I made the choice to go back to school and get my undergrad degree at Ryerson University, which is a big university based in Toronto. So I went back to school, right? Did 2 more years of university, grinded it out. It was hell. But I ended up getting my degree. And then shortly after that, the internet was starting to kind of like pop off again, right? We recovered from the bust, and people were making things work. And what ended up happening was a friend that I went to school with ended up hooking me up with a job with an American company this time. This company was called Greenfield Online. They were based in Wilton, Connecticut, and they were in the online market research business, and they were publicly traded on the NASDAQ. And this would have been in and around kind of like 2006. Yeah. So, 2006, you just think of what was about to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the years that follow. So then I'm working with an American company, and like I'm working hand in hand with the Americans, and we're taking over the industry, right? So that was a cool experience because like I saw like how a sales oriented corporate America company operated. It was all about quotas. It was you put each sales guy was there on the board, and every day we would get an update as to who was selling what and how much they were selling and what percent of their quota was, so on and so forth, right? And it was just like an amazing experience just to be working for an American company that was publicly traded on the NASDAQ, and they were pushing themselves to become this $100 million a year company at the time. 100 million doesn't sound like much now, right? But back then it was. So then what happened? The company kind of like grew, and then 2008 came, and then there was the financial crisis, right? So the company that I was working for, they had to lay people off. I survived the layoffs, right? And in and around this time also, while the financial crisis was happening, the first iPhone was released. So this was like very disruptive time. The financial crisis hit, and now there's this thing called the iPhone, right? That probably to some degree like saved us from recovering from the financial crisis quickly. So we navigated this financial crisis. We made cuts, right? Some people left, some people got let go, some people stayed. And then shortly thereafter, an opportunity came up where Microsoft ended up acquiring the company, right? Wow. So I got to experience this full cycle of working for this publicly traded American company all the way through like this big growth mode to the financial crisis to then witnessing Microsoft come in and scoop us up for a nice chunk of change.
Wow.
I wish I was a shareholder. That would have been
Yeah. You could have been. They were on the NASDAQ.
Yeah, I could have been. Yeah, if I was smart enough, I could have bought some stock for sure. I could have bought 10 shares maybe.
So I've got a question, and forgive me if this makes you feel old, but I was born in 2000. I think Nick, you were also born in 2000 or 99?
99.
Yeah, so I really have no idea what the dotcom boom and bust was all about. Could
really?
you talk about that a little bit? Yeah, I mean,
That's
I was
so crazy.
I was just being born when all that happened. The internet's always been around as long as I'm concerned.
You guys are born with the internet. That's a nice luxury. I was born in 1981. Okay, The millennial generation started that year. So I'm basically like the godfather of the millennial generation. Yeah. And the internet, like there was barely even computers in 1981, right? So, the first time I remember seeing a computer, I was in kindergarten. They wheeled this boxy thing in, and, there it was, right? And then, going into like the late 80s and early 90s, maybe the internet was invented, right? And then what happened was the internet was going to become this big thing, right? So all of a sudden, everybody just started pouring money into making it happen, right? Conceptually, the internet was going to be huge, right? So in the late 90s, anybody and everybody was throwing money at these internet startups. It's almost like comparable to like how there's a new coin coming out every day in crypto, right? This is the concept of the coin. Let's plow money into it, right? So this is the concept of the .com, diapers.com, tools.com, this thing.com, that thing.com. Millions upon millions of dollars was getting poured into these companies, right? The people were there, and they're building basically like HTML, CSS websites with perhaps a little dinky database, right? But there was no one transacting, right? So the money was getting poured in, and it was getting used on human resources to like make all these internet companies a thing.
But there was just no sales going on.
Yeah, there's no sales, and like the people ate up the salaries, right? And then eventually, like, and there was a lot of like Wall Street scams going on too. I know that a lot of people kind of like got burned by .com investments, right? And then basically what ended up happening was almost overnight, the money all got pulled, and the entire space imploded, right? So that's an example of what it was a .com boom, because everyone was investing money and starting companies, and everyone was getting rich. And prices of stocks were going up and like overinflated, right? But you're basically throwing money at like these concepts that actually didn't have like business fundamentals in place, and that's what led to the .com bust. Yeah. So we had to like start over again, right? And I think like probably in and around like 2004, 2005, 2006, that's when people started to like figure out a way to get the internet to work and actually like monetize properly. Yeah. I even think back to like 2002, 2003. That was probably in and around the first time that like you could use Google. And think of how effective Google is today, right?
Yeah.
Back then, you'd be working on a research project for school, and you'd go to Google to try to like find like the research that you needed or the answers that you needed. And you would put like a search term in, and Google would provide you with like the worst results imaginable. Like the answers weren't there, right? But today you go and you search something, and like immediately you're going to find like, something useful.
Like a million results, and like the three of the closest answers.
Results, right? Yeah. But just imagine that frustration that, people like myself or people before me had to go through without the power of, the internet actually working.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the Microsoft merger came in with Greenfield
acquisition. Yeah.
The Greenfield, and you got to see that merger or that acquisition take place. So where'd that kind of launch you from after that? Would you?
Well, I kind of
like a little of a digital marketing experience, right?
Yeah, for sure. So basically, while I was doing my thing at Greenfield, right, I kind of like was scratching my entrepreneurial itch at the same time, right? I got into the concept of making money online. I came across an ad, make money online. I clicked it. I learned about affiliate marketing, and like one thing led to another, and I went down like the affiliate marketing rabbit hole for a few years, and I started like kind of like building my own little affiliate websites, and then eventually selling my own digital products, and then having this kind of like itch to go all in as an entrepreneur, right? And I kind of like got sick of like, the commute, the 9-to-5 commute, and like all the bureaucracies that came with it. And I made the choice to leave that company and, try my hand full time at entrepreneurship. Running an online marketing company that involved affiliate marketing and selling digital goods. But but it was very short-lived. My attempt at entrepreneurship that time around was very short-lived. And what I ended up having to do after probably like 2-3 months, at that time I had a place, I had a wife, I had a kid, right? I realized I couldn't really, swing it.
Yeah.
I had to actually get another job and provide for my family again. So I ended up pivoting back into the online market research business, but this time with a company, like a startup that was based in LA. And I got a sales job with them and kind of like traveled back and forth from Toronto to LA. And, at
That's
the same
a long
time,
flight.
Yeah. Well, 4 hours. So nothing
okay.
too crazy. Yeah. 4 hours direct. Yeah. But it was nice. I always had this kind of like California dream coming up because you see a lot of it on TV, right? So I kind of got that chance to experience the California dream. But then what happened after a year of working for that company, people found out that I was kind of like doing some, website stuff on the side. And they're like, you got to like choose between working for us or like doing your websites. Right. And I made the big, bold move to, go full force with the website business.
Yeah.
And I did it at a time when my second son was born. He was 3 months old. Right. And we had just moved into a new, bigger house, 6 months before. Right. And here I am going all in, probably at the worst imaginable time. Right. Yeah. And that would have been in 2010. So you guys would have been 10 years old. And I was going all in as an entrepreneur, building websites for people. And it was like the hardest thing that I ever experienced. But this time I didn't go back. This time I just pushed myself. I grinded it out. I just started like selling one website after another. It was very hard at first. It was very messy at first, but one thing led to another. And I ended up kind of like finding some level of stability. And I was able to get this website design business cash flowing, right? And getting it to the point where, I could pay myself and, pay my contractors and such, right? And pay my mortgage, right? But then I wasn't kind of like thinking about like, I should be investing in the stock market, right? Or there's this thing called Bitcoin, that just came out, right?
Yeah.
It was like I was like distracted, and now ever since then I've been an all-in entrepreneur, right? I have built multiple businesses. I've had partnerships that have come and gone. I've done my own thing. Now I'm here in BC, upwards of 12 years later. I have my own digital agency with a team of 12 people, right? I'm bigger, stronger, better than ever. And I also have like other projects that I'm running, right, on the sidelines, because I am trying to hit a home run. I don't want to just be in the agency business forever. And at the same time, I'm practicing what I preach behind the concept of get the stock market working for you, get crypto working for you, get real estate working for you. So they say to some degree it like takes 10 years to become an overnight success. And I've kind of experienced that through my entrepreneurial journey from 2010 when I went all in up until today.
I want to talk about the mindset behind being entrepreneur, like betting on yourself versus sticking with that job because you just had a new baby, a new house, got to put food on the table.
Yeah.
And I see behind you the 10X rule, 4-hour work week, good to great, rich dad, poor dad. So when did the self-development and investing in yourself, when did that start to take place, and how did that sort of change your mind and keep you in the right direction? Because you always could go back to that W-2 job that was going to pay you a good salary that allowed you to buy the house and support the family. Yeah. But it looks like, and those must be some significant books in your life. You got them hanging on the wall. How did investing in yourself impact your trajectory?
Yeah, it certainly has had a big impact on me over the years. I started delving into self-help books, right? Or, business books in the mid 2000s. And I had a lot to learn. I had a lot to learn. I had a lot to unlearn, right? Because of my upbringing. But it certainly got me, got my mindset right. One book after another, I started, thinking differently and, feeling more confident in the pursuit of my entrepreneurial dreams. And now I've read over 100 kind of like self-development books, business books, entrepreneur books, like books that tell stories behind the billionaires, right? For example, Steve Jobs or Elon Musk, and many others. I've read a lot of them, right? So the role that books has played, every book that I've read, I've always like tried to take action on it, right? So like, for example, the 4-hour work week, obviously I don't live the 4-hour work week every week, but like I do apply some of the principles to this day. And I do sometimes have 4-hour work weeks. Like there was a couple of weeks ago, a friend came and visited from Paris, and that was certainly a 4-hour work week, right? So that's an example. As far as the 10X rule, I read the 10X rule in and around 2017, and Grant Cardone ultimately lit a fire under my butt and made me realize just how much more action that I needed to take. And then that led me to learning more about Grant Cardone, and then learning about his 10X Growth Con 2 and his mentor program, right? Which I joined and I attended. I was at 10X Growth Con 2. And that event in itself had a profound impact on me and so many people just like me, right? Like even people in your world, right? They were at that conference, right? And what took place from that conference in kind of like, I think it was like 2017, February of 2017, potentially, what took place from that conference to today with so many people, including people in your circle, right? It's nothing shy of phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
So it just goes to show you how impactful a book like the 10X Rule can be, and how it can lead you to, pedal to the metal in making your dreams happen.
Absolutely. And to go back a little bit, Matt, so when you were with the LA startup, was this the mental mindset, what was that something you were gaining from your coworkers there, or was this something that you were just stirring up on the side along with your websites? You were just educating on yourself?
Yeah, lots of self-education.
Yeah,
for sure.
And,
yeah, definitely.
And so what you were doing, clients were coming to you who were starting businesses and they wanted websites. So you were making websites for them.
I was making websites for people. Yeah. Very tedious, painful job, especially back then. Right. Because it was a lot of like, hand coded stuff. Right. Now the technology is way better. Anyone can build a website. You can go to Wix and build one. Right. Or you can use the latest WordPress technology and not even have to touch like a piece of code. Yeah. Right. But back then, the technology just wasn't fully developed, and it was a lot of like back and forth between clients and myself and developers and everything like that. Yeah. It was certainly a grind. And
so then that kind of moved to the digital agency. So can you kind of break down the digital agency to us and how that kind of looks like in your 12 team members there?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I will say this, like when I was in the website business, I realized quickly that doing websites and like trying to sustain that wasn't a good business model, because it's all project work, right? So eventually, after a year or two, I started to pivot more towards internet marketing and having people pay me every month to, run an SEO campaign, run their Google ads, maybe manage their website for them, right? And that was like a critical success factor for me then and also today, right? Because everything that I do now through my digital agency, if we're working together, you're ultimately paying my agency to support your digital marketing initiatives on a monthly basis. Every single client that I have pays my team every month to strategize and then execute their digital marketing initiatives, right? And it's a full service digital agency. The agency that I have now, it's called Grow with Search. We're dedicated to helping our clients build out a complete online presence that's going to allow them to get all the inbound leads and customers they need in order to meet their business growth objectives and gain a competitive advantage in the marketplace, right? And we do that by helping them with their website, helping them with their content, helping them with their SEO, Google ads, Facebook ads, email marketing, marketing automation, and everything in between, right? And taking this approach, it's a very sticky model, right? I've had clients working with me under this model for upwards of 10 years now. And I've been able to get them really, really good results. right? Because this stuff does work when executed appropriately. When digging deep and like making that actual investment and like not just having like a dinky little website that's sitting there and like whatever, but like actually like, going through the process and the art and science of it all, right? If you get this stuff set up proper, it can certainly work wonders for any business, regardless of how successful you already are today or not, right? Building up that complete online presence and getting digital marketing working right for you across the digital marketing landscape, it can take your business to the next level, regardless of how hard you're pushing things on with the sales team or through social media in itself, right? This stuff certainly works wonders for the people that are willing and able to make the investment in it, and for the people that believe in it. And the sad thing, the hard thing about all this is it's difficult and challenging at times to convince people that they need all this stuff. It's worth the investment, right? That's the hardest thing that I have to deal with in running this business. It's just finding the right people to get on board with the concept, embrace it, and then find success with it. But again, the clients that I do have that have embraced it, their success has been exponential. I've taken guys from 0 to 7, 8 figures many times over.
Can you talk about the importance of building a personal brand? Because the Wealthy Marketer, that's your personal brand. You do a lot on social media. Like, why is it so important to have that presence for yourself, not only for your business?
Yeah, for sure. So we all know, for the most part, we all understand the importance of having a personal brand. I think everybody should be investing in their personal brand. In my case, I doubled down on the Wealthy Marketer versus the name Matt Colangelo, because I feel that it better represents my journey and who I am today as a person. I am the Wealthy Marketer, and I feel like through the Wealthy Marketer, I'm able to kind of like draw attention to the things that I'm doing business-wise, right? And at the same time, I'm able to kind of share my knowledge and experience and concepts with other aspiring marketers out there as well. Because I don't want them to be struggling marketers. I want them to become wealthy marketers, right? I don't want them to go through the struggles that I ended up going through, right? I took the long road to figure out the process, right? Now, under the name The Wealthy Marketer, I want to teach people the process and ensure that they become wealthy marketers and they prosper through the power of digital marketing, both in what they do for a living, while also ensuring that like they're making the right financial decisions and investments, and then also leading a very fulfilling life through travel, adventure, and freedom of time and place. Yeah. So I think everybody has some sort of angle that they could play off to build their personal brand. You just got to dig down and maybe go through some life experience in order to figure out what that is, And for me, it happened a couple of years ago. I figured something out, right? For other people, they might have to go through a little bit more in order to get there, right? But you always got to try. You always got to try to figure out, who you are, what your personal brand could represent, and then, piece it together in a way where it can be meaningful to the world. And ultimately in what Coach Burt talks about is becoming that person of interest, right? So a lot of the Wealthy Marketer was inspired off some of Coach Burt's lessons and concepts. And, here we are today. And I believe that the Wealthy Marketer has a bright future for many years.
Absolutely. And just kind of give us a vision of the Wealthy Marketer future. Can you kind of lay out your vision for the Wealthy Marketer and your end goal?
Yeah, for sure. So firstly, like I have like a strong website built out for the Wealthy Marketer. You can learn more about the Wealthy Marketer at thewealthymarketer.com.
Check it out.
My stories there, so people that, are in marketing, perhaps, take the time to read that, it might inspire you. You might be able to resonate with it. So that's one thing. I offer coaching, right? So if you want to get in marketing, you want to do marketing for a living, right? Or you are a marketer and you want to make sure that like you're developing the right skills and doing the right things with your money, I can coach you there, right? I'm also working on an online course because I know the digital marketing landscape from A to Z. I feel like I can share my lessons in kind of like a structured form. So anyone that wanted to learn digital marketing for their own use, or to be qualified for a job, or to sharpen their skills, diversify their skills, or even if they're running their own business and they want to do digital marketing effectively, right? Or maybe if you're brave, you want to start your own digital marketing agency. My course will be able to help you. This is still a work in progress, but ideally it will come to be sooner than later. I'm also in the process of writing a book, right? So the Wealthy Marketer book should be coming soon. Maybe next year we'll have it completed. And with that book, I'm going to be sharing my story in longer form. I'm going to be sharing the opportunities that are available through digital marketing. And I'm going to be sharing the process of becoming a wealthy marketer, right? And I'll just touch very briefly on what that process is, right? So in becoming a wealthy marketer, first thing is you have to get your mindset right. Okay, you got to get like things right between your two ears. You got to like make sure that you have a positive mindset, a growth mindset, and be open-minded to new concepts, and continuously invest your time into reading nonfiction books. I think it's very important. Once you kind of like got that flowing, then you're going to want to figure out the skills that you need to develop, right? Because with digital marketing, it's all about like developing skills that you can then bring to the marketplace in order to make money, whether it's through a job, a side hustle, running your own agency, whatever, right? Develop skills that are in demand in the marketplace today. So some of these skills could be, you could become a full stack web developer. You could drill down in SEO. You could run ads on Google, Facebook, and LinkedIn. What else is big? Video production, right?
Yeah.
Things like this. Drill down in the skills that resonate with you and you feel best suit you, right? For what your interests are and what your strengths are, right? And then use those skills to make money, whether it's, again, a job, a side hustle, running your own business, or running your own agency. And then after that, you got to go through the motion of investing, right? So I want to help people not make the mistake of just working and like spending their money and maybe buying a place, right? I think that the more meaningful process that people should follow is you got to get the stock market working for you. Ideally, US based companies, the S&P 500, or perhaps build a stock portfolio of high quality US companies that have good management, they have good financials, and they have good growth prospects, right? Get the stock market working for you. It's the easiest way to get compound interest working for you, right? And without it, you're at a huge disadvantage in this world. Then after that is crypto, right? Obviously, something disruptive is happening with crypto today.
Yeah.
Right. So you got to get some skin in the game with that. Obviously, it's more risky than stocks and perhaps more risky than real estate, but the upside is too great. You got to have that working for you too. And then after you have stocks and crypto working for you, then I believe you should, move on to the real estate side of things. And some people might, challenge me on that, right? But I'm just trying to help people avoid just being invested in real estate and then avoid the opportunity behind stocks and crypto because they're so inundated and focused on the upside of real estate, right? It's easiest to get stocks working for you. Then it's also easy to get crypto working for you. And then once you have those things working for you, you can like trim your gains off the top and then get into real estate, right? So stocks, crypto, real estate in that order. I'm a big believer in it.
And Matt, I'd love to ask you a couple questions about the crypto. And Tim was telling me you're a pretty big crypto enthusiast. And this last week, I've been doing some research and been following some influencers in that space. And
yeah,
they talked about how important it is to market correctly when a new coin comes out to build a solid foundation for the community to come. Are you kind of venturing in that space as far as creating the digital marketing agent, the digital marketing and the marketing pieces, the video productions for, new coins and new communities and growing communities in that space?
I'm not involved in that space in that way. Yeah. I just do digital marketing for, traditional businesses. Right. And at the same time, as I'm doing the digital marketing for the traditional businesses, and I'm making my money, I'm then putting it to work in crypto as a piece to the pie. Yeah. But I'm not like involved hands-on in the space. I'm just more of like, I believe in Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin is like, it's a blessing to, 80% of the people in this world, to which the banks aren't doing anything to help them. Right. And it's giving a lot of people hope and a chance to kind of like, get ahead to some degree. And then obviously, there's Bitcoin and there's Ethereum, and then there's all the altcoins thereafter. So you got to kind of like just do your research and figure out, how you want to play crypto, and, get in there, get some skin in the game, even if it's a small piece to your overall investment portfolio.
Absolutely.
So marketing is obviously very important to any business. If you want to make money, people got to know you exist. So what advice would you give to, say, a young entrepreneur who is not very marketing minded, but is wanting to get out there, things that they can do to grow their business when they're not necessarily in a position to hire someone like you to come in and take it over and come in and do all of it? Like what would be the foundations of an entrepreneur's marketing knowledge if they're just if they're not this marketer, if they're not this wealthy marketer, and they're just wanting to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, for sure. So obviously, the entrepreneurs that make an investment in marketing, whether they do it themselves or they pay someone to do it, they're the ones that kind of like really get ahead of the game, right? You can still run a business without doing marketing and just focus on, direct sales and stuff like that. But yeah, there's opportunities being missed. But ultimately, what can you do? There is the easy way of like just focusing on social media and the platforms that exist there. And, you can run an ad campaign on Facebook, a lead ad campaign on Facebook, to generate leads for your business without even having anybody touch your website, right? Mm-hmm. So that's one.
What are some tips on someone trying to get into that?
Yeah, just learn how to build a Facebook ad campaign.
YouTube it.
Come up with an offer, right? Mm-hmm. Piece that offer together using very somewhat like well thought out copy, sales oriented copy, pairing that up with an image that highlights the offer, and then whatever call to action makes the most sense, right? And then you serve that out to your audience, right? You build it's all audience based, right? Based off interest and demographics and geographics and everything like that, right? So you match your offer and ad with the audience, and then from there you generate the leads through the lead ad form. It's like as simple as that, but also complicated. Mm-hmm. But if you can learn how to build those types of ads and run them in your market and get them in front of people that, ultimately you believe are your customers, then you can win. You can simply win at scale using that one strategy. But then beyond that, like I highly recommend, do all the right things across all the opportunities that are available to you, right? Like get a good quality website built, and ideally hire someone professionally, right? Mm-hmm. Make an investment in your SEO strategy. So when people search locally for what you offer, they can find you, right? Advertise on Google, advertise on Facebook, advertise on LinkedIn, if it makes sense. Build an email marketing list, right? Send emails out to the people on your list, right? And then the other big thing is like content. Content creation needs to feed into all this stuff too, for sure. Yeah. So that's the whole picture. But like, as far as like what you could do if you don't have any knowledge, why don't you just build a lead ad campaign in the Facebook ads platform? That should get you somewhere quickly, right? And then also perhaps, make a podcast and talk about your business, right? And create like a lot of content opportunities through that podcast that you can then share on social media, and perhaps even have some level of virality take place where, your ideal customer finds you in that way, right? I'm a big believer in podcasts for content creation.
That's awesome. You can repurpose so much of it.
Yeah, exactly.
If you got you just you get an hour of content, and you can split an hour into 15-second clips a billion times.
Yeah. I just published episode 1 of the Wealthy Marketer Show, and I've posted like upwards of 20 little clips on Reels and TikTok from that show. And I probably have another 10 clips that are, sitting there waiting to be utilized. So it's, I think podcast, when done right and captured in video and maybe even done in person, ideally, right? Not necessary, but ideal. You can create a lot of good quality content that, your prospective audience could get exposed to, and that could lead to business opportunities thereafter.
So an interesting question I just thought of, you were mentioning Reels and TikTok. How has that changed everything? Because it seems like anyone can just become a celebrity, within a matter of days now. Just the virality of TikTok videos and Instagram Reels,
For sure,
the algorithms that they've created.
Yeah. So historically, it's all about like getting on the platform early, right? You get on the platform or the medium early, socially speaking. That's your opportunity to, really take off, right? So TikTok, let's say a year or two ago, you could post anything and you would get like you get 1,000 views, 2,000 views, 3,000, 5,000, 10,000, 100,000, a million, right? But now it's becoming harder because there's so many people posting content to it, right? There's so much content and like not enough room for distribution of it all. So the views go down, right? Whereas now with Reels, kind of like coming second to the game, right? Copied TikTok, right? Worked it into Instagram. That's where the organic views are coming from today, right? And, somewhere down the line, maybe the metaverse is where, the big opportunity is going to exist.
Yeah, you got Nick's attention when you mentioned the metaverse. He's been diving all into that.
I think it's bananas.
Excited for it.
Yeah.
You won't have to leave your house.
Building malls in a virtual world so people can walk around and shop and, do different things. It's pretty crazy to think about, but it's definitely
interesting to see how it all unfolds. I'm sure it's going to blow all of our minds.
Yeah. I reject it. They're forcing it upon us.
Yeah, Tim's not about it, but I did love the something we do need to start doing, Tim, is TikTok and Reels and different things like that. I know we've been doing that for the podcast, but to spit out more content for the student of the game.
Yeah, and that's one crazy thing. So we just changed the name of the podcast to Student of the Game recently. Whenever this episode comes out, it might not be so recent, but within the last 2 weeks, we put out episode 1 under the new name, created a brand new Instagram account, took a clip from it, put it on Reels, and it got like 6,000 views.
There you go.
On an Instagram account that was created today. We created the account, posted it, 6,000 people saw it. So that's just that's the power of these types of content.
For sure.
Is
that kind of exposure for free is hard to come by,
Yeah.
There's only so many places where you can post a piece of content today and get 6,000 views. Yeah, and Reels is probably one of the one and only kind of thing right now.
And I think Reels are going to be very powerful, if not as powerful as TikTok, maybe even more, just because of the team behind it. The whole Facebook will now Meta, that whole company is behind it. They're going to figure something out to where they're going to get everybody.
Well, Facebook, Meta owns Instagram, right?
They do. Yeah.
So, wait for the name change to come there, Called Meta.
When I log into Instagram, when I pull up Instagram, it already says Instagram with Meta.
Yeah.
Yep. But just every feature that is becoming a part of our culture, they've just been able to adapt it and create their own, like Snapchat stories.
And do it successfully.
Like Snapchat stories were, only a Snapchat thing, and then they're the biggest thing on Instagram now. Like you're going to get way more attention on your Instagram story than a post most of the time, 9 times out of 10.
For sure, yeah. Stories is so big.
Yeah, so then TikTok blows up. Everyone's on TikTok, and then Reels happen. People are like, oh, they're ripping
Yeah.
off TikTok,
Uh-huh.
and then people start watching Reels,
Yeah.
and it's just becoming natural.
For
So
sure.
I think that
Yeah,
at
they're
some point,
good at ripping. They're good at
whatever
cloning.
whatever gets people's attention and keeps them in the app, Instagram's
Yeah.
going to figure it out, and it's going to become more powerful.
For sure.
So it's exciting and interesting to see where that's going to go in the near future.
Definitely. Even the sunglasses that Zuckerberg's been walking around with, that was a copy of, I think Snap made.
Yeah,
some
the
sunglasses.
Snapchat spectacles, or
the spectacles.
whatever they were called.
Yeah. So Mark has now taken that concept and partnered with Ray-Ban and built the technology. And, you know, those have the potential of becoming big too, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember Google Glass?
Yeah, I do. That was a big thing that, as big as it got, it ended up quickly getting canned, oddly enough. It was kind of weird.
Yeah, I think it was a little too ahead of its time.
Yeah.
People weren't ready to have a heads-up display in their whole life, but I think that's coming.
Soon enough. Yeah, it'll circle back.
That's crazy. But a question I do have for you, Matt, is what's a book that you gift or recommend the most out of the 10 that you've read so far this year?
Yeah, good question. The 10 that I've read so far this year. I recently read The Compound Effect.
I
And I think that's like a good book. It helps with the mindset, and it helps you understand the importance of carrying good habits and repeated habits, right? That if you follow through on, let's say, for example, exercising, 3-4 days a week for a long period of time, eventually, good things are going to happen to your body, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you end up reading regularly, right, consistently from one day to the next, you're going to gain a lot of knowledge and, become smarter and wiser and probably a better person, more effective person in the process. Or let's say, for example, if you're in sales, right, and you get consistent at making sales calls every day, consistently, day in, day out, for a year, 2 years kind of thing, you're going to see results, right?
It compounds. You can be doing the same thing you were doing a year ago, but you're getting different results.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you got better at it, or you just,
definitely,
it all just compounds.
Yeah, definitely. And even you can take my digital agency experience, right? The first, 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, 12 months was really hard. But once I kind of got to the 1.5 year mark, right, things started to kind of like come together, and I experienced the compound effect. I think it takes 18 months for a compound effect to take hold, right? And the results and success continues to compound to this day, right? I would not be where I am today without the first 10 years of running my business and sticking with it. And each year it just keeps on getting bigger and better because I'm focused on it.
Yeah. What's the greatest lesson you've learned in the last 12 months?
The greatest lesson that I learned in the last 12 months? I will tell you the greatest lesson that I learned in the past 12 months. This is huge. Having a good quality team in place to support all the things that you are responsible for is invaluable. Yeah. There was so many years where I was doing 10 plus jobs. And even over the past couple of years, maybe I narrowed it down to like 5 to 8 jobs, right? But now I have all the right people in all the right seats doing all my jobs, right? And that, it was a huge risk that I took by acquiring all these team members and putting them in the right place with the right role and training them and showing them the way, right? But it's allowed me to be a much more effective business person, CEO, leader, and my clients are getting really good results in the process as well. And I'm not going crazy because now I'm doing, to some degree, 1 or 2 or maybe 3 jobs instead of 10.
Yeah.
Right. So I've learned that making an investment in the right team with the right mix of people and not cutting short anywhere, it's totally worth it, because that's the only way that you can truly succeed and scale. That's the only way that you can truly succeed and scale as a business operator, by having the right team in place. So it's a worthwhile investment.
Super powerful. And overall, your business is just operating to a higher efficiency too, because you're not doing 10 jobs, and your clients are loving their results because it's just more effective, and everybody has their own role, and everybody's getting taken care of, and you guys are growing at a rapid rate, it sounds like. So that's amazing advice.
Steady pace for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, awesome. Well, Matt, do you have any last words before we wrap this thing up?
Let's talk a little bit about real estate. Why don't you guys share with me your perspective on real estate and what it takes to, where the opportunities are, and then maybe we can talk a little bit about the Canadian real estate market, and then we can shut things down.
Well, first, got to say congrats to Nick. He just closed a real estate deal the other day. So let's jump into that. Tell them about, or we'll tell Matt about how that deal went down.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was a wholesale deal. So we assigned the contract. We didn't purchase the property, but this lead was we consistently marketed to this prospect, and we really built some rapport with this seller that was in a tough situation. She had to move out of her duplex because she couldn't afford the mortgage anymore.
Yeah.
And so what we did, we put her under contract for $175, and over the term of 30 days, she just really had a tough time getting all of her stuff out. So what we did this past week is I hired a guy, Tim, shout out, Ken came through, and this poor guy, for 4 days moved couches, dressers, all by himself. That's what he does. And we got everything moved out. We got her taken care of, and we wholesaled it to an investor out of California for $200,000. So nice. A little $25,000 assignment fee, and we got the deal done. But I mean, it was a long and timing process. I want to say maybe 5 months, the whole deal process from the initial contact to a closed deal.
Amazing.
So that was exciting. That happened yesterday. But I think just starting off in the Chattanooga market, if you would kind of in our ballpark over here, it's a very growing area, and I think we're kind of seeing all over the United States, the occupancy rates, I want to say, are like 98-99%, especially in multifamily. And I don't know if that's what we're seeing in single family. I think I got that statistic from Ken McElroy. I love his videos. I would definitely recommend you checking that out, Matt. He talks about different asset classes and brings on operators from all those different asset classes, some very experienced operators. And he has like a weekly news report too, you can see. But especially in Chattanooga, we're seeing a lot of urban growth in the city, and we're seeing a lot of suburban growth out in the neighborhoods. A lot of developers coming in all the way from Chattanooga to Knoxville, to Johnson City, just buying up a lot of land to build the housing that's needed for people moving to the Southeast.
For sure.
And companies starting to break ground and build factories and in this particular location. But
so things are booming in Chattanooga.
Yeah, they're booming everywhere for the most part.
For sure.
I've heard that New York is bouncing back. California is not struggling as hard as they were with everyone moving out. Like, it's still crazy everywhere. Yeah. There's and then there was a statistic I saw today. I don't know what it was, but it's like over the next 15 years, California is going to need 8 million houses built, and they're only going to build like 80,000 at a time or something like that. Yeah. Like they're not going to be able to meet the demand.
There's certainly a global supply shortage for real estate.
So a lot of people that are not into real estate are talking about, I'm going to wait for the crash. I'm going to wait for the correction. And if you look at some of the data, like there's not even enough supply right now. Like that, it's a supply and demand issue. There's not enough supply. So if people start losing their houses, they're just going to keep getting bought. It's not going to be like 2008, 2009, when there was just houses sitting on the market for months and months because there was no one to buy them. Like there's people competing, 30,000, 40,000, 50,000, cash over asking price.
Yeah.
And it's just not the same situation that it was. Like,
Right.
it is truly a supply and demand issue. And a lot of that can be contributed to the shortage of labor, number one, but lumber, because there was, you couldn't get lumber for a good price. It went up like 450%. So people had bought land, got a contract to build their home. And then once it starts being built, prices went up 5 times, and they're like, that doesn't make sense. So building stopped for a while. People just were not, they had nowhere to move to. And it's truly an interesting situation. Just
Definitely.
there's just not enough supply is the thing that's driving all the prices.
For sure. And that gives real estate the upside that we're seeing right now globally. Yeah,
it does. And with the inflation, it's a good time to be holding real estate because prices are going up. And when taxes and prices go up, rent goes up. It doesn't hurt the people owning real estate at all.
Yeah.
So it is a good time to have already been in real estate, but I don't think you would go wrong getting into real estate. My prediction is that prices will slow down at some point, but they may never go below where they're at today. Like if you're waiting for it to go down, it'll go down at some point, but it's not gonna, it's not gonna dip below November 2021 prices, most likely.
For sure.
And I heard a pretty good resource from Hunter Thompson. He brought on a economist, and they talked about what they see for the future, and they said they kind of gave a projection around 2026 when they see land prices getting so high that developers cannot build anymore. It just doesn't make sense. Then you'll start seeing that decrease in prices, and that switch when the interest rates start going up, when they just can't build any more supply. But I mean, going back to your statement, Tim, of developers just developing so many products to bring to the market, and their timelines are just continuously being pushed out because they can't get those materials there, where people are still buying. I can't remember this. I read an article from the largest home builder that goes around and purchases home building companies. So I think they're called it's H. Covenhan or something like that, K. Hovenen or something like that, where they go around and purchase home builders all around the country. And they were saying, I want to say like, and this is butchered because I can't remember the exact term, but it's like 85% of the homes that were planned to being built were bought before the foundation was poured to the home.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that's absolutely crazy. And overall in the Chattanooga market, we, a couple months ago, we were seeing that 40, 50, thousand over asking price cash, but now we're starting to see a slower down, more houses on the market, but they're still being bought frequently, especially the good ones in those solid locations here.
Good stuff.
You got us talking about real estate.
All good. Well,
so what are your thoughts on real estate, or maybe your questions?
Well, I feel like you guys have a more healthy real estate market than Canada has, because while the prices continue to climb, your average income is still kind of like following the line, right? The other day, Tim, I shared with you that article, article. You
comparing the US to Canada.
Yeah. And your graph is kind of like this, and then like there was a 2008 financial crisis that went down, and then kind of like going back up. But like both the income line and the house price line, it kind of like they track each other, right? Whereas with Canada, it's kind of been like this, and it's been tracking pretty good, and then it dropped at some point, like I think in the early 90s, and then went back up, and then in the mid 2000s, or even in and around the financial crisis, what ended up happening with us is real estate prices just skyrocketed. They skyrocketed like this, and they're still skyrocketing, but average income is being left behind, right? So it's just like a very ugly looking chart. And probably to some degree, if you guys looked at how much I had to pay for a modest home here, it would blow your mind. Yeah. Like a shipbox detached home can run for upwards of like 1.5, 2 million, 3 million Canadian, right?
Wow.
You can do the math on that, right? Maybe let's say
is Canadian
$1 million
Is Canadian pretty
1.5
close to
million
the US
people in
dollar?
US. Pardon?
I said, is Canadian pretty close to the US dollar?
Let's say, for example, if I wanted to buy $1, it would cost me 135 Canadian.
Okay.
Yeah. But even if you do the exchange rate math on it, we're still talking about like $1 million US plus for a shitbox home.
And is it got some land attached to it, or is it just?
Yeah, it's got some land. Yeah,
it's got some land.
Yeah, it's got a little plot of land. Yeah, but not an acre or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's like literally like a 40-foot lot kind of thing.
And that's kind of in the British Columbia.
That's
Vancouver.
the Vancouver area. Yeah, it's probably the most expensive market in all of Canada, and probably one of the most expensive in the world. But people do want to live here because there's beautiful quality of life right there in their own backyard, right? So we pay a premium. But even in Toronto, it's still gotten out of hand. Like no one is buying properties based off their income. They're getting generational hand-me-downs, or they have a very large, lucrative paycheck, right? But it comes down to like a lot of like generational help, and the super rich buying everything up.
And I think there's a little factor in there too of kind of the cost of capital right now. We had an episode with Jeffrey Hulse. He's an investor here in Chattanooga, and I was listening to this episode earlier today where he talked about you can get financing from 3.25% and under, and the inflation rate at that time we had a podcast with Jeff was like 5.1%. So he's like, well, if you went to go buy $1 million worth of toilet paper and sold it the next year, you'd probably be up and ahead, and gain some profit off of there. So I think that's a factor too, where might make a little more sense because the cost of capital is so cheap. They get financing to buy a higher purchase price. So it'd be interesting to kind of see that the future of those prices in Canada. And I don't know really much anything about the real estate market up there. But British Columbia sounds beautiful, and I'd love to look at some pictures and look at the landscape.
You and Tim should come visit one day. I'll show you guys around.
I want to. I've always wanted to go to Jasper National Park.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that.
Places I'd see.
Nashville.
Yeah.
Jasper, and then more importantly, Banff.
Yeah. That one too, but I didn't know how to say it, so
Banff.
So Jasper was on the list instead.
Well, maybe the next podcast we do has got to be in person in Vancouver, British Columbia.
Or you guys can come on the Wealthy Marketer show. Visit me
awesome.
here, and I'll have you guys on, and we can talk more about real estate.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll get you out of here, but thank you very much, Matt, for coming on.
Thanks, guys, for your time.
Thank you for everybody that tuned in. First of all, Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, Matt, where can more people find out more about you? I know you mentioned the wealthymarketer.com, but just some more sources if they have any questions or just want to check out what you're doing.
For sure. So you can look me up on Instagram as The Wealthy Marketer. Find me there. Follow me. You'll get all kinds of good advice and a taste of what the good life is here in BC. And definitely head over to thewealthymarketer.com. Everything's there. All my social links, my story, the different solutions that you could, buy from me if you're interested in learning digital marketing or you need help with digital marketing. You can also sign up for my free 7-day course, free 7-day email course where I teach you how to become a wealthy marketer step by step. If there's anyone out there that's interested in, leveraging digital marketing to prosper and use the money that you're making in digital marketing to invest and live the good life, then that would be a good starting point as well.
Awesome.
All right. Awesome. We'll end it there.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for everyone that tuned in. I'm Tim Stone with my host, Nick Galbreath. See you next time.